With Call of Duty World War II being the first main boots on the ground Call of Duty game in 3 years, I thought this would be an interesting video to make because I think a lot of players are going to have difficulty adjusting to the boots on the ground gameplay. There are likely some players that came into the series during the advanced movement games, and possibly several older players that have developed bad habits and forgotten how they should be playing Call of Duty. So in this video I'm just going to go through some things that I think you should think about and consider when you're trying to adapt to Call of Duty World War II. This first area is going to be positioning. Positioning is going to matter a lot in Call of Duty World War II, and a lot of the advanced movement games positioning became less and less important because you could move around the map so quickly. Setting yourself up for success by having good positioning never really went away. It just became less important because of the pace and because of the movement options that players were presented with and because of the superpowers. In a slower paced game, positioning is one of the most important things for consistent success. If someone has a high ground advantage over you, for example, you won't just be able to fly up there and kill them, or pop armor and kill them, or rewind out of their area or something. Like, you're just going to have less options. If someone has good positioning, they have like a huge advantage in that gunfight, and they're very likely to take it unless you're just massively better than them, or they just completely choke that situation. This positioning is something that just really comes down to learning the game and the maps on an individual basis and learning what situations you can take advantage of and like what positions on the map you could take advantage of. I can't really just tell you, I can't just flat out tell you how to have good positioning. It's just something you have to learn for yourself. And power positions seem like they're going to be a thing in Call of Duty World War II. Power positions, to me, are spots that you can use on the map to control the gameplay massively. And I made a video on an MWR spot here. I'm going to put a clip of it on here so you can see what I'm talking about. And this is something that you might have to consider thinking about in Call of Duty World War II. Obviously, this exact spot won't exist in World War II, but just the thought process behind this spot may have to be something that you think about quite often when you're adjusting to this game. Crouch behind this. If you stand on this trash can and you crouch behind this refrigerator, you have a head glitch and a perfect line of sight onto the C flag. And when the enemies are spawning at the C flag, they're generally going to be spawning in this building here. Like, this is one of the places that get spawned, so they're just going to walk out straight into your line of sights. That's if they have the C flag, so you're going to be having A at that time. So yeah, they're going to be walking into your sights constantly, and you're going to get a lot of easy kills. And you're very hard to take out in this position. You can see if you crouch down, you can see the sandbags on top of this building here, so that you could just counter that spot as well. That's one of the ways people will try to kill you, is going through there. This next tip also kind of falls in line with positioning, and that's just going to be slow down how you play. The maps that we've seen in World War II kind of indicate that a slower playstyle is likely to succeed. I'm by no means saying that rushing is dead and that you need to camp in a corner to do well. I'm just saying that the overall pace of the game will be slower, and you have less movement options, and the character just seems slower overall. That might just be because there's no boosting and no wall running, but you just get around the map slower. So if you're exposing yourself in an open field, you're going to be out in the open longer than you would in a game like Infinite Warfare, where you could slide and jump and do other things to get like faster movement. If you're exposing yourself in World War II, you're probably going to die. That's just how it is. With wall running and jumping and stuff, you might be able to get out of those situations. And just the pace of the game, people were playing less campy in Infinite Warfare. There are people that camp, obviously, but like controlling the map isn't going to be a thing you run into as much in Infinite Warfare, but in World War II, a lot of players are going to be controlling the map. So if you have bad positioning, you're playing too fast for the map, you're going to get punished a lot. Like I said, you're going to be out in the open longer if you do take out in the open like spots. And in a fast-paced game like IW, you would be punished less for sprinting around corners. Like, it's always been a bad idea. But in a really fast-paced game like Infinite Warfare, you'd be punished less for that. If you're sprinting around corners consistently in World War II, you're going to get punished for that, and you're going to lose a lot of fights just because of the sprint out time, and a lot of players are probably going to be prepared for you around that corner. In IW, people are likely to be pushing into you just because of the pace of the game is so fast, so you might not be as disadvantaged in that fight, but if they're waiting for you and you're sprinting around a corner, you're dead. There's very little you can do there unless like the skill differences between you and the other player are just so massive that it can make up for several milliseconds. There are also no superpowers in World War II, that can be used as a get-out-of-jail-free card if you put yourself in a bad situation. If you get into a super bad situation in Infinite Warfare, you could just pop rewind or phase shift, or even reactive armor could be used to maybe get you out of that situation. Those things don't exist in World War II, so you're going to have to think about your positioning more, and you're going to have to think about your pacing more so that you're not being punished as much, because there is more room for players to punish you in a slower-paced game. Drop shotting and jump shotting never really went away. These are moves that you can execute in the middle of a gunfight to get to tip the odds in your favor, and a lot of people seem to think that jump shotting is going away just because there's not boosting, but jump shotting isn't going anywhere. It was part of COD before jetpacks, and it will continue to be a part of COD after jetpacks, and they are helpful in World War II. You should learn what situations you like to jump or drop so that it becomes muscle memory and that you don't have to think about it as much. If you see me drop shot in game, that isn't even something I have to think about. My brain just recognizes that it's a drop shot situation and I drop shot. It isn't something that will happen instantly. Like, you can't just get this muscle memory instantly, but I've been playing Call of Duty Online for like 10 years at this point, so it's just something that's become second nature. Drop shotting has always been a part of COD for as long as I've played, so it's just something that I've accrued massive experience with. We still have about a month before World War II, so this is something that you need to practice. Just think about which situations you'd like to drop shot in and which situations you'd like to jump shot in, because it's something that's relatively similar in World War II, for me at least. I also recommend that you should learn to play Claw. I made a video about this recently, and I'll put a clip here so you can see what Claw is, but if you would like to see more on that video, it'll be linked down in the description, and I just made it recently, so you should be able to easily find it on my channel. And especially when I live stream, if people ask what button layout I play on and I say default, they're kind of surprised. So I'm just going to go into the grip real quick, and then I'll get into some gameplay and explain why I think this is beneficial for you to play like this in Call of Duty and pretty much any first-person shooter on console. So basically what you're going to do is you're going to have your index finger on these AXBY buttons, or triangle, circle, X, square on PlayStation, and then your middle finger is on the trigger. I feel like most people kind of play like this with their index finger on the trigger, but for Claw, you play like this. It's kind of awkward to make this. Sorry, I tried to film this in a few different ways, and it's been a pain in the ass. But basically, this is how you play. You just hold it like this. This next tip is going to be that for the first time since 2012, everyone will have equipment. Once Black Ops 2 came out and introduced the Pick 10 system, it was often in your advantage to maybe give away your equipment so you could get extra perks and attachments. And many players just started to run no equipment at all. So they might not be accustomed to how they should use nades or how they should like counterplay around nades. Nades are going to be very important in this game because everybody has one. You should know what situations you like to use your nade in, what situations it's helpful to you. This also ties into positioning. If there's a power position on that map and an enemy is taking advantage of it, you might want to get a nade on him to get him out of that spot rather than challenging him in a one-on-one gunfight where he has the advantage. So think about how you use your nades. A lot of people are just going to be throwing them randomly or forgetting they have them. Those are likely to be the two things that people do. Throwing them randomly or not really throwing them randomly, but like throwing them into situations where it's likely to get a kill might be helpful to you. But I think you should have like thought behind your nade. Don't just like throw it in the middle of the map hoping you get something. Have a plan for that nade. Don't just waste it, but you also don't want to die with it in your pocket because then it's just a wasted opportunity. So learn the situations where you like to use nades. Learn how you can use them to force the enemies out of positions that are advantageous to them. Also using them to keep the enemies off flags, because trophy systems aren't a thing in this game, and a lot of people likely aren't going to be using the armored division because they're missing out on other things that like something like the mountain, airborne, or infantry division could have. So not everyone's going to have flak jacket, and trophy systems don't exist. So nades are going to play a big role in this game, and they already have been. If you played the beta, you probably know that nades were very good. So you should learn what nades you like to use and how you like to use them, and have a purpose for every nade. Don't just throw it away each life and remember that you have it. From the beta, it seems like the weapon classes will have a more defined role in World War II than they have in recent games. From this, I mean like the SMGs will have be more restricted in their defined ranges. Like in the beta, you could use SMGs at retarded ranges, but they're getting nerfed. And for example, a lot of the rifles are semi-automatic, so they really don't excel at close range. So you want to have you want to like swap out your secondary weapon for another primary that will make your loadout more well-rounded. For example, if you're using a semi-automatic rifle that excels at range, and you have the opportunity to swap out your pistol for an SMG, you should do that. In case you need to fight players up close, it'll be nice to have that SMG. And it goes the other way too. If you have a sub and you have the opportunity to pick up a rifle, you should do that because these weapons are likely to be much more restricted in their effective ranges. For something in IW, if you're using something like the K-bar, there really wasn't a reason to do this because you could pretty much use the K-bar at any range in Infinite Warfare, where fights are going to be consistently happening. Obviously, if you were on the fringe edges of the map, it's kind of hard to use the K-bar there, but it's definitely doable, and those aren't ranges that were consistent in Infinite Warfare. But in World War II, it seems like the SMGs are going to be more defined in close range, and the rifles are going to be more defined for medium to long range. So you should identify what weapons, like what range your class is weak in, and then maybe pick up a primary that can help you in that range, and then you'll have it in your pocket in case you need it. But that's all for this video, guys. Some things will change in World War II. Like I said, these are some topics that you should consider. Especially if you're used to advanced movement, you might really struggle with positioning and pacing early on in the game. But at the end of the day, it's still COD, and a lot of things will stay the same. The feel of it still feels like COD, and that's very good. So aiming, reaction, like a lot of things are still going to be important. You're just going to have to think. I think the game's just going to be a bit slower and a bit more tactical. It's not going to be like Ghost slow, but I think it will be slower overall. But like I said, at the end of the day, it's still COD, and a lot of the same things will continue to work. You just might have to think about things a lot more, or a little bit more, and think about the map a little bit more than you would have to in recent games. Like I said, these are just some things I think you should consider and think about, and maybe adapt into your gameplay if you can. These are by no means like everything that you should do for adapting to World War II. These are just some guidelines I thought of. That's going to be it for this video. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, a like rating is always appreciated, and if you'd like to see more content from me, consider subscribing. Thank you for watching.
advance failed. Pull back to the MLR.